everybody. Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Kim Potter trial, day 3, as jury selection is continuing here in the Kim Potter trial. We have 10 jurors impaneled so far, and the lunch break is expected to come. Court proceedings are expected to come back and resume after the lunch break, which will be in 3 minutes or so. So again, thank you all for tuning in. If you want to know more information about the Kim Potter trial, check out our website. On our website, you could see there's a Kim Potter trial landing page up at the top. Click into that, and that'll bring you into the landing page, which will show you a little bit here. And this landing page will allow you to get access to our live streams and some of our information regarding the trial, as well as some of our past coverage on Daunte Wright. When he was killed, there was a lot of upheaval throughout the city. People were still grieving from a lot of the high-profile police deaths that have happened, and the George Floyd killing and the Derek Chauvin trial was happening during the same time Daunte Wright was killed, not too far away from it. And so there was Operation Safety Net, which was going on in the city with a big military or National Guard buildup, and there was a lot of protests. We're going to get into some of that protest coverage that we provided in April when the trial gets going a little bit more. Looks like we might be back from trial or from a lunch break, so we're going to tune in.
Okay, on the record, I've ordered and the parties have agreed that the jury be anonymous in this case. A juror has expressed concerns that his identity has become public. We intend to question this juror without live streaming. I want to emphasize that this does not constitute a courtroom closure. The general public and the media have overflow courtrooms where they can observe the questioning on a closed-circuit TV. Those overflow courtrooms will remain open. Also, the Wright and Potter family members, as well as the 2 media representatives, may remain in the courtroom during the questioning. Although I find that there is no courtroom closure, even if it constituted closure, the right to an open and public voir dire must be balanced against the juror's privacy or other personal interests. Under Rule 26.02, Subdivision 4, any closure must be no broader than necessary to protect the overriding interests. In Smith versus Titus, 141 Supreme Court 982, the United States Supreme Court reaffirmed its directive in Waller versus Georgia, 467 U.S. 39, that 4 requirements be satisfied before a trial court may close a courtroom. First, the closure must advance an overriding interest that is likely to be prejudiced. Second, the closure must be no broader than necessary to protect that interest. Third, the court must consider reasonable alternatives to closing the proceeding. And fourth, the court must make findings adequate to support the closure. Those requirements have been met in this situation. First, the overriding interest is the juror's anonymity. Live streaming the questioning of the juror in question will only serve to draw even more interest in his identity. The juror has already expressed concern about his identity becoming public, and allowing live streaming while he is being questioned is likely to heighten his concerns. Second, the closure, if there is one, is no broader than necessary. As I indicated before, the overflow courtrooms will remain open and running. Third, I find this way of proceeding is the most reasonable manner to deal with the situation at hand. I further find that it strikes a fair balance to the right to a public voir dire and the juror's interest in maintaining his anonymity. Okay. All right. Are we prepared to call in the juror?
Well, you just saw, let me get this other clip off. What's happening here is the jury has just been told that they will not, the public has just been told that we will not be able to watch this next juror be questioned during voir dire. So there's been a ruling to have the jurors stay anonymous. During these proceedings, some of the defense attorneys have said the names of some of the potential jurors, possibly by accident, referring to them as their last name or their name. One of the jurors went so far as sort of telling all about himself based on the questioning that they were questioning him. What band is he part of? Where does he work? And so this next person who's actually being questioned is now being questioned in privacy without cameras available. There's 2 media personnel inside the courtroom that are watching it, and the courtroom is open. But what's happening right now is questioning will be done privately. So what we're going to do during this meantime is we're going to actually show you a protest that happened outside of the judge's house, outside of the judge's residence about 3 weeks ago. And we showed this in the morning stream. We're going to show it again. We'll continue to keep an eye on the court proceedings and make sure that we won't miss anything. This video that we're going to show was outside the residence of Judge Chu. This was before the ruling was made that video and audio could be accessible to the public. This was at a time when Judge Chu had ruled against the media coalition and other coalitions of actually saying you cannot have audio and video coverage. So we will bring you this video. We'll be right back with some more of the court proceedings or some more discussion right after this.
We are demanding accountability, transparency, and justice for Daunte Wright. To get those three things, we demand that we get cameras and live streamers in the courtroom. Kim Potter goes on trial the 30th of November. Judge Regina Chu says that there should be no cameras and there will be no live streamers allowed in the courtroom. What are they trying to hide? If they believe that there is going to be justice had in that courtroom, let us see it.
That's right.
Let us watch it. Let us be at home on the couch, chilling, feet up, demanding and praying that we get the justice that Daunte so rightfully deserves.
That's right.
Let us see it. Let us hear it. Let us watch it. Getting the justice that he so rightfully deserves. Because we all know what happened was murder. We all know that Daunte is no longer with us. And we all know that that was not right. So the only way that for justice to be had in that courtroom, the only way for accountability, the only way for transparency is for us to see it, for everyone to see it. This is not something that they can just sweep under the rug. This is not something that they can do in the darkness. This is not something they can do in the shadows. If you have nothing to hide, let us see it. If you believe that's where justice is going to happen, let us see it. Let us see it. Can y'all say that after me? Say, let us see it.
Let us see it.
Let us see it.
Let us see it.
Let us hear it.
Let us hear it.
Daunte Wright.
Daunte Wright. Daunte Wright. Daunte Wright.
Yeah, you can talk to
Daunte Wright. Daunte Wright.
That's what you can talk to. Regina Chu. We demand transparency, we demand accountability, and the way that we can get that is by having cameras in the courtroom, by having live streamers in the courtroom. If they believe that that courtroom will give Daunte Wright justice, then they will give us the accountability. They will show us what happens in that courtroom. Instead of hiding it for themselves, let the world see. Let the world see. If this justice system is supposed to give people justice, then let us see the justice that you are trying to get.
Shut it down. 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 Shut it down! Shut it down!
When I say what do we want, you say justice. What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
When I say what do we want, we say transparency. What do we want?
Transparency!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Transparency!
So welcome back. Right now you are looking at the feed that's coming in. They have cut all the feeds to the court. So we're going to continue to stay live. We're going to continue to watch what's happening, but we will show and play another video, and this will be a video of people speaking outside after the first day of trial Tuesday. There was a gathering to Shira Garaway and families supporting families against police violence. Gathered a bunch of people, 50 to 100 showed up, and this was what they were saying right after the protest and before that car attack that ended up happening. We're going to roll that. We'll keep an eye on what's happening in the court, and we'll bring you that feed as soon as that comes back.
Okay, everybody, we probably few words and we'll get started on the march. We are here standing in solidarity with Daunte's family. We have a bunch of the families here that have lost loved ones at the hands of law enforcement here to stand in solidarity. We have all of you guys that have come out this evening, and we are very thankful and grateful that you guys are here to stand up for Daunte's life. And hopefully we get this woman exactly what she deserves out of this situation. We do not believe that this was an accidental situation. We believe that from listening to the young men in the area out in Brooklyn Center, we believe that this woman was targeted and harassing and profiling young black men way before she killed Daunte Wright. And then prior to that, she killed Kobe Heisler, or she was a part of what happened to Kobe Heisler. She actually told the officers on scene to turn off their body cameras after Kobe Heisler was shot. So she's been a part of multiple situations where this is just a repeat, just like Derek Chauvin repeatedly killed people before he got to George Floyd. We're dealing with the same thing with Kim Potter. It's just a female instead, but we're not gonna let her cry her little white privilege tears to get away with murder of a young black man who was unarmed. She was a 25-year-old veteran. She knew the difference between her gun and a taser. So we just want to continue to show solidarity with this family. We want to continue to show up for this family and all families that have lost their loved ones at the hands of this corrupted system. And so,
And we are back after a short break. What happened there was the judge told the cameras to stop recording for the juror who was just being questioned, and we'll get right back to it.
Okay, Deputy, I think we're... Yes, we have a brand new panel. Thank you for interrupting your normal routine. Thank you for fulfilling such an important civic obligation. You know, these, of course, are not normal times. These are extremely trying times. So it is with extra heartfelt appreciation from the entire judicial system that we thank you for responding to your jury summonses. Upholding the rights we cherish, the right to a trial by jury and the right to a speedy trial, in unusual, trying times, is the American way. You validate these constitutional rights by appearing today and by proving your willingness to serve. You jurors really are our heroes. You are ordinary people who are called to do extraordinary work to make sure our justice system moves forward, even in the midst of a pandemic. You are upholding the Constitution, the very foundation of our democracy, and we could not do this without you. Not all of us can serve in the military, but what we can do is do our civic duty by serving as jurors. Our justice system would not work without good citizens like you, and I'm saying a heartfelt thank you again, because I really can't say it enough. Now, as you know, this is a criminal case. The state of Minnesota has charged defendant Kimberly Potter with the following counts. Count 1 is first-degree manslaughter predicated on reckless use or handling of a firearm. And that count alleges that on or about April 11, 2021, in Brooklyn Center, Hennepin County, Minnesota, defendant Kimberly Ann Potter caused the death of Daunte Demetrius Wright while committing the misdemeanor offense of reckless handling or use of a firearm so as to endanger the safety of another with such force and violence that death or great bodily harm to any person was reasonably foreseeable. Count 2 is for second-degree manslaughter, and that count alleges that on or about April 11, 2021, in Brooklyn Center, Hennepin County, Minnesota, defendant Kimberly Ann Potter caused the death of Daunte Demetrius Wright by her culpable negligence, whereby Kimberly Potter created an unreasonable risk and consciously took a chance of causing death or great bodily harm to Daunte Demetrius Wright while using or possessing a firearm. The defendant has pleaded not guilty. This plea denies the charges made against her and places upon the state of Minnesota the burden of proving her guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. The state is represented by Attorney General Keith Ellison, Mr. Matt Frank, Ms. Erin Eldridge, and Mr. Josh Larson. The defendant is represented by Mr. Earl Gray, Mr. Paul Ing, and Ms. Amanda Montgomery. I do want to introduce you a couple of people that will play critical roles in this case. You've probably already met my staff. My law clerk is Mr. Zach Kramer, and my judicial clerk is Ms. Jessica Bauer. They'll be taking care of all administrative matters relating to these proceedings. And if any problem arises of a personal nature, please let my staff know, and they'll get the message to me. Seated in front of me is Ms. Carly Davis. She is a certified court reporter, and she's responsible for taking down all the testimony and keeping a formal record of the trial. That means when you respond to questions, you must speak loudly and clearly so that our court reporter can make an accurate record. If your answer is a yes or a no, you must answer orally instead of shaking your head, because we can't make a record of that. And please refrain from saying uh-huh and although it's kind of natural to do that. Okay, a couple of things before we start the jury selection. First of all of you are required to keep your masks on at all times. I will allow you to remove your mask when you're in the witness box being asked questions, but the attorneys are required to wear their masks as well unless they're at the podium that's enclosed by plexiglass. Let me give you an overview of what jury selection is going to look like. First of all, I'm going to ask you group questions. There is no need for you to answer orally. It's just a matter of raising your hand or not raising your hand in response to my questions. Then there will be an individual part of the jury selection, and what will happen there is I'll take each juror at a time, dismiss the other jurors, and have them wait in the courtroom that's set up for you. And you'll be seated in the witness box, and I'll ask you to remove your mask. During the individual questioning, I'm just going to do some follow-up questions to the answers that you gave in the questionnaire, and the attorneys will then have an opportunity to ask you questions if they have any. All right. Now, a couple of things about the courtroom. We can't control the temperature in here all the time, so please dress in layers. You can bring anything you want to drink into the courtroom as long as it has a cap on it. And then the subject of delays. I am very, very cognizant of the time that you're taking out of your ordinary lives to serve as jurors. So I try to deal with all the legal issues before you come in the morning or after you leave at night. And I've already ruled on a number of pretrial motions before you were even asked to come in for jury selection. But I have to tell you that sometimes things come up, and legal matters come up, evidentiary matters come up, and it'll be necessary for the lawyers and I to confer. There might be delays, I hope not, but it will be necessary sometimes for us to confer, because it's so important that you consider only the evidence you should be considering. So I hope you will understand and forgive us for any delays that might occur. All right, I'm going to give you some preliminary instructions now. There are rules of law that apply in a criminal case. A complaint is not evidence. It creates no inference or presumption of guilt. No member of the jury should in any way be prejudiced against the defendant because a complaint has been filed against her or because the defendant is on trial. The defendant is presumed innocent. In order for you to find the defendant guilty, the state must prove guilt. The defendant does not have to prove her innocence. The presumption of innocence remains with the defendant unless and until the state proves her guilty beyond a reasonable doubt by evidence admitted in this trial. A common misperception of the American criminal justice system is that the jury determines whether or not the accused person is guilty or innocent. That is not what American jurors do in a criminal case. There is no such thing as an innocent verdict in American criminal law. The jury's verdict is either guilty or not guilty. Guilty means proved beyond a reasonable doubt. Not guilty means not proved beyond a reasonable doubt. To ensure both the defendant and the state receive a fair trial by an impartial jury, it'll be necessary for me and the attorneys to ask you some questions. Remember that you're going to be under oath when you answer our questions, and you must answer truthfully. The questioning is a very important part of the process. All of us hold personal opinions, and all of us have had life experiences. We wouldn't be human if that wasn't the case. The purpose of jury selection is to try to determine whether or not you hold certain opinions so strongly, or whether something has happened to you or someone near and dear to you that would make it impossible for you to be a fair and impartial juror in this type of a case. Put differently, the opinion that you had or the incident that happened would prevent you from listening to the evidence and basing your decision solely on the evidence. Please don't take any offense to the questions that are going to be asked. None of us wishes to pry into your personal affairs. Our sole purpose and our sole obligation is to ensure that jurors who decide this case are neutral, open-minded, and fair. Neutral means that before you hear all the evidence, you are not leaning one way or the other on the question of whether the state has proved guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Open-minded means that you're willing to listen and consider all the evidence, and fair means that you will base your verdict on the evidence in this case and not on anything that is not presented in this case. We want you to bring, of course, your common sense into the jury room, but your verdict must be based on the evidence you hear during the trial. Your obligation is to answer honestly and to tell us of anything, even if you're not directly asked, that might affect your ability to be neutral, open-minded, and fair. Now, some of you who will be questioned will be excused from serving on the jury. Please don't be offended by being excused. It doesn't necessarily mean that anyone thinks that you're not a fair person, so I hope you will understand if you are excused. At this point, members of the panel, will you please stand up and raise your right hand while my law clerk, Mr. Kramer, administers the oath.
Do you affirm under penalty of perjury that you will truthfully answer all questions about your qualifications to serve as a juror? If so, please say, I do.
All right, please be seated. Okay, panel members, I'm going to start with group questions. And again, you don't need to answer orally. The first one is, do any of you have serious concerns about your health if you were to serve as a juror in this case? If so, please raise your hand. No hands are raised. Do any of you have any trouble understanding or hearing what I am saying? If so, please raise your hand. No hands are raised. Our system of law presumes the defendant innocent of the charges against her unless and until she has been proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. The burden of proof is on the state. The defendant does not have to prove her innocence, and she is presumed innocent. Do you accept the principle that the defendant is presumed innocent and that the state has a burden of proof? If so, please raise your hand. All hands are raised. Does anyone disagree with that principle? Please raise your hand. No hands are raised. If you serve as a juror, I'll instruct you as to the law. You must follow the law as I give it to you, even if you believe the law is or should be different. Are you willing to do this? If so, please raise your hand. All hands are raised. If you're chosen as a juror, I will instruct you that proof beyond a reasonable doubt is such proof as ordinarily prudent men and women would act upon in their most important affairs. A reasonable doubt is a doubt based upon reason and common sense. It does not mean beyond all possibility of doubt. Does anyone disagree with that principle of law? If so, please raise your hand. No hands are raised. In arriving at your verdict, if you sit as a juror, the subject of penalty or punishment is not to be discussed or considered by you. This is a matter that lies solely with the court and within the limits prescribed by law. The subject of penalty or punishment must not in any way affect your decision as to whether or not the state has proven the charges beyond a reasonable doubt. Are you willing to follow this instruction? If so, please raise your hand. All hands are raised. Under our system of justice, the jury must decide the case solely on the evidence produced in court and the law that the judge instructs, and not because of passion, prejudice, or sympathy. Would you be able to follow this instruction? If so, please raise your hand. All hands are raised. There will be police officers who will testify in this case, as well as other witnesses. I'm going to give you some guidelines in determining whether a witness is believable or not believable. You know, it's basically a matter of common sense, but things to look for are: how did the witness appear? Did he or she seem honest and sincere? Will the witness gain or lose if the case is decided a certain way? Was the witness's testimony consistent with other evidence in the case? And what was the witness's relationship to the parties? Would you be able to use these guidelines in deciding the credibility of a police officer just as you would any other witness? If so, please raise your hand. All hands are raised. Is there anyone that would believe the testimony of a police officer just because he or she is in law enforcement? Please raise your hand. No hands are raised. Is there anyone here who would totally discount the testimony of a police officer just because of his or her position? No hands are raised. Do any of you know any of the lawyers involved in this case? Do any of you know the defendant? All right, you were given a list of possible witnesses earlier. They may not all testify. Do any of you know any of the witnesses on the list? And I'd like you to raise your hand even if you're not sure. All right, no hands are raised. We intend to start opening statements by December 8th. We may start earlier, but right now it's December 8th. And we expect to be finished by December 23rd. That's our best estimate, no later than December 23rd. Now, don't be concerned at all if we don't finish by December 23rd, because I intend to take Christmas Eve and that weekend off and start December 27th, the following Monday, if we're not done. So don't worry about missing Christmas Eve and Christmas with your family and friends. I don't intend to do that to you. If you're selected as a juror, the trial will usually start at 9 o'clock and will conclude at about 4:30 or 5 o'clock. There'll be a 20-minute break in the afternoon and a 20-minute break in the morning, and we do take an hour lunch break. So that would be the trial schedule. I just want to, you're unlikely to run into the parties or the lawyers while you're undergoing voir dire and during the trial, but please remember that you must not talk to anyone involved in the case, nor should you discuss the case among yourselves. During the recess, if you do see the parties or the lawyers, don't take offense if they don't say hello or talk to you. Everyone involved in this case has been ordered to have no contact or communication with any member of the jury panel. Any violation of that order could jeopardize the trial, and this prohibition will continue until a verdict has been returned. All right, those are my preliminary instructions, members of the panel. At this time, I would ask that the panel members, other than panel member number 46, follow the deputy back to your waiting room. Ms. 46, will you please come and have a seat next to me? And you may remove your mask. Thank you for filling out this rather lengthy questionnaire. Okay, I just have a couple of follow-up questions. If you don't remember what you said in the questionnaire, I'll remind you, okay? So don't be concerned if you don't recall. You indicated in response to one question that you have some concern because this is another event that would add to the trauma to the city. Can you elaborate on what your concern is?
Can you repeat the last part of that one more time for me?
You said in your questionnaire that you were sad for the victim and sad for the police officer's long career ending this way. And you expressed concern because this was another event that would add to the trauma in the city. What did you mean by trauma? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes. So I believe my intention with answering. Apologies. Yeah, I think my intention with answering that way and calling it.
Is it still not on?
Testing?
No?
Try it again.
Test.
I'm sorry? Answer to question number 6. Do we have to call in the mod squad?
Try it again.
Test.
Oh, yes.
Sorry. Apologies.
That did work.
We're okay. Okay.
Do you want me to repeat the question?
No, I think I recall the most of it. And if I'm not
Okay.
answering completely, you can go back and ask for more information. But I believe if I use the word trauma in the cities, it's more so regarding just all the different sort of civil unrest that has been occurring in our region, starting, in the summer of 2020, and this being another event that played out after the fact. But I was observant of some more civil unrest and just more feelings of, just a lot of feelings of community members and people who are expressing their feelings. And so I think it's really difficult when you're raised in Minnesota and don't really know the area as a place where there's maybe a lot of civil unrest or a lot of protests or a lot of sort of highly visible news stories that are known nationally. To have that be in your area is sometimes difficult.
Okay.
Can you please just have sidebar?
Yes. I was on the wrong questionnaire. But thank you for your answer.
You're welcome.
Okay, now on the questionnaire that you did. You stated that you had a somewhat negative general impression of defendant Kimberly Potter. Can you tell me why you feel that way?
Yeah, I believe my feeling from that comes from just my reaction to the tragedy that a life was lost. And so that's my explanation for my perception. And there's no other, I'm not very familiar with the case and didn't do a lot of reading or watch the video, so I'm not familiar with any other facts that would lead me to believe that way besides just my general reaction to the loss of a life.
Your Honor, sidebar again.
Okay. Kind of a long process. I'm just, all right. You're Ms. 46. Okay. Your general impression of defendant Kimberly Potter is neutral. Is it still neutral?
I think it lies between neutral and somewhat negative. At this point, I would say it's a neutral viewpoint, but at the time of learning of the incident, it was honestly probably somewhat negative.
And why?
Same answer as before. I would say it's my general reaction to a tragedy, and so in response to just learning that a life has been lost, that would be my explanation.
Okay. Whatever opinions that you have of Ms. Potter and of Mr. Wright, are you going to be able to just base your verdict on the evidence alone and not on other things that were not presented in the case?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Tell me a little bit more about your contact with law enforcement.
Yeah, so my employment is in administration at a municipality. So I do not work in a police department, but have contact with, have had interactions in my professional work life with leadership in police departments.
Okay.
So,
and has your experience with law enforcement been positive, negative, or neutral?
positive.
Okay. You were a victim of having your car broken into, and did you report it?
I did.
And were you satisfied with what the police officers did in connection with your complaint?
Yeah, very satisfied.
Okay. Okay, are you currently in law school?
I am.
Okay, what year are you?
I'm a first year.
Okay. Do you have an idea of what type of lawyer you want to be when you graduate?
I don't, but I'm interested in public policy.
Okay. Even though you do probably have more knowledge about the law than most potential jurors will have, are you willing to follow the instructions that I give you and not base your determination of what the outcome of this case is based on your understanding of the law?
Yes, it's my
Okay.
first semester, so
Oh,
yes, for sure.
All right. And you want to be a juror in this case?
Can you repeat that?
You want to be a juror in this case?
Yes.
All right. You think you're going to be a great juror, right?
I hope so. Yes.
You'll be fair and impartial?
Yes.
You'll keep an open mind?
Yes.
All right. Is there anything that the attorneys or I should know about you that might impact on your duty to be a juror here?
Nothing that I can think of.
All right. Thank you very much. Now the attorneys get a chance to ask questions.
Great.
And I
Thank you.
apologize for the confusion initially on questionnaires. We have so many of them.
No worries. Thanks.
Okay, counsel?
Good afternoon.
Hello.
I'm Paul Eng with Earl Grey, Amanda Montgomery, Officer Potter. I've got a few questions for you, and then my colleague from the state will follow, and then we'll make a decision. How's that? Where are you in law school? What law school?
I go to Mitchell Hamlin.
Are you in the 4-year program or 3-year?
I'm in the 4-year part-time blended program.
So you can keep your municipal job and keep the cash flowing.
You're correct. Yep.
Well, we've got your detailed questionnaire. I had a couple questions for you.
Okay.
It seems like you have a fairly good memory of this incident, at least on the first page. How many times did you watch the videotape of this, if you recall?
I believe I briefly watched parts one time, but most of the information from the first page is through news headlines and stories.
And when you wrote this up, did you kind of review some news stories, or did you go from your memory?
It's just from my best memory.
You indicate that you've talked to other people about Mr. Wright's death. You say yes. And you indicated that you shared opinion that it's a very devastating incident. I think we can all agree to that.
Yep.
Although I have no understanding of the complete facts or testimony, it's fairly apparent that a mistake was made given that the officer yelled taser and discharged the wrong weapon. That's your memory of what you saw?
Correct.
Okay. You are interested in police reform, however, and the question I wanted to ask you about is number 3 from page 6. Have you or someone close to you ever helped, support, or advocated in favor of or against police reform? If yes, please explain. And you say, and I'll quote just to help you remember what you said, yes, I've been an active supporter of police reform and shared thoughts on social media. Tell me about your thoughts on police reform.
Yeah,
In a paragraph or less.
Okay, sounds good. I would say that since my undergraduate degree, I've been interested in criminal justice reform, and I think more fairly than police reform, I think the entire criminal justice system. I'm interested in just equity of all different types being represented in the many government systems that we have. And as a public service employee, I think that's part of my role, is to see how we can do a better job of making sure we have equity across all of the different government systems we have, including in police departments. I think police reform looks very different depending on the police department.
Well, tell me what your ideas for police reform are.
Yeah, I think there could be different allocation of resources and maybe more partnerships with community engagement efforts. And I think, again, every police department is different from my understanding, so it just depends on which organization.
And what steps have you made for police reform where you work?
So don't think I can name my
I don't
place
want you
of
to name
employment.
where you work. No.
Sure. So I think the current organization which I work with is a leader in looking at police departments and the ways that they can integrate with the community in a very safe and effective manner. So I have personally not taken any steps.
Have you suggested steps?
I have not suggested steps.
Where was your political science degree from? What college?
North Dakota State University in Fargo.
On page 7, there were a bunch of questions where you either strongly disagreed or strongly agreed, strongly disagreed. I had a couple questions for you. One of the questions is, because law enforcement officers have such dangerous jobs, it is not right to second-guess decisions they make while on duty. And you say, I somewhat disagree. Tell me why you said that.
I think that because of the degree and the consequences that can come from their responsibilities, that just having a blanket statement that says we can never disagree with questioning decisions or actions, I feel is somewhat unfair. Granted, I'm not an expert in the operations of a police officer.
Okay. Then you have one question here that black people and other minorities do not receive equal treatment to whites in the criminal justice system. You strongly disagree. That's still your answer?
I'm not sure if it's a strong disagreement, but I think there's a disagreement there.
Well, let me ask you this. It's, Officer Potter's white, of course, and Mr. Wright is black, and will that racial dynamic make a difference to you as you, if you're chosen, look at this case? I mean, you've got this wealth of experience and feeling for police reform and have thought deeply about it. Will that make a difference to you as you view the evidence?
No, I think police reform is a different topic matter to discuss, at least personally for me, in regard to deciding the facts of a case. I think there's a very important distinguishment between opinions and facts, and the job of a juror is to look at the facts brought before them.
On firearms, though, you have strong feelings. You believe in background checks and mandatory checks for all of those things.
Correct.
And you believe in the permitting process, too?
Correct.
As necessary. Then you have on page 9, I want to ask you this. The question was, for your memory's sake, how favorable or unfavorable are you about Blue Lives Matter? You say, I'm somewhat unfavorable. And then you say, here's your answer, if I may read it to you just to refresh your memory. Blue lives, in my opinion, are not relevant. Police choose to put on their uniform, but more importantly, underline more, they can take it off at the end of the day. Tell me what you meant by that.
Yeah, so I was contrasting Blue Lives Matter to Black Lives Matter, which I believe is a question on the same page.
Right.
And I think that the Blue Lives Matter organization, while it's a relevant organization for people to share their feelings, especially those that are involved in law enforcement, by meaning that, more importantly, that at the end of the day they can take it off. The Blue Lives, being a cop, is a profession that they don't have to carry with them at all times, versus being a person of color is not something that you can necessarily remove from yourself at the end of your shift, or when you go home to your family, or when you're grocery shopping, etc.
Okay. Then we have a section here. I'm almost through. Appreciate your patience. We have opinions regarding the justice system. You've kind of touched on this a little bit too. You're somewhat critical of the plea bargaining system. You want it to be more transparent. Well, tell me, you know, the question is, do you believe the jury system in this country is fair? Why don't you tell me what your answer is now, 3 months after you read this, and now you waited all day to see us too.
Yes, so my opinion of the jury system is that that is a constitutional right, and that it's something that a lot of people in the criminal justice system don't necessarily get to experience because of the plea bargains and things that happen. But I do believe that juries, and this is a new process for me to be educated on, but I do believe that juries are made up of humans, and humans have biases, and they're human, right? So it's not a completely scientific system approving guilt or not guilt.
So it's a complicated question to answer, basically.
It is.
A lot of levels to it.
Yes.
Okay. A couple more questions. At the very end of the questionnaire, you had 2 long paragraphs. I want to go to the second paragraph for you. You say, I also feel our system has disenfranchised certain marginal populations, and it's a system in which eliminating implicit bias is near impossible. You still stand by that?
Yes.
Yet I believe in justice and the parameters of most statutes. The parameters of most statutes or all statutes?
I would say most statutes without knowing all of the statutes that are in our jurisdiction.
Okay. So in the last sentence, so I believe the system does work, can work, and will work. The larger question is, who is it working for? You wrote that, didn't you? So here's my question for you.
Yes.
Okay, here's my question for you. You know, this trial isn't about sociology or making corrections to the criminal justice system. It's really a narrow question as to whether or not the state can prove beyond a reasonable doubt the elements of the alleged crimes. I mean, it's a narrow question here. And, well, the whole system can be criticized, and no system is perfect. But your job, should you be accepted here, would be just to look at the facts, presume innocence, and find out if you have a doubt based upon reason. You understand that?
Yes.
So while you've got a tremendous amount of thought in your questionnaire, which we all appreciate, I mean, you understand that our job here is rather narrow at this point.
Yes.
Well, turning back to one last question, you've been, I touched on this, a supporter of police reform and shared your thoughts on social media. You have social media presence, do you not?
I do.
Have you made comments about various police cases on your social media accounts?
Yes, not this case, others.
And you've made comments that I think could be construed as unfavorable to the police. Fair?
I guess I would need a reference of which comments you're referring to.
Well, I don't want to read them to you, but you know, I've reviewed them.
Sure.
And you've made a number of comments that could be construed, at least in my reading of them. I may be wrong. I mean, this is why I'm asking you. That would be not favoring the police and being celebratory about convictions about police in criminal cases. Fair?
I think that's unfair. I think that my comments that have been made on social media have been specific to each case that I've chosen to speak on. I don't think it's ever been generalized towards the entire police system. And in fact, because of my professional experience and my proximity to them, I think that would be a red flag to my employer. But I would say that for the comments that you're likely referring to on my social media, those were specific to the case of which I referenced.
May I have a moment?
Yes.
Well, thanks a lot for talking to me. The defense does exercise a peremptory challenge.
Thank you so much. And you're excused from this jury. All right. Good luck in law school, okay? I can tell you're going to make a great lawyer just from this question. I'm sorry?
Can we address the court, please?
Okay.
So thank you all for tuning in. We just saw an interesting exchange with potential juror number 46, who possibly works at the city level and is into reform and equity, as she announced. It sounds like she was breaking a lot down on her jury questionnaire. The defense then used a preemptory strike to not have her sit on the panel. So right now there's a sidebar happening with the judge, the defense, and the prosecuting teams. They're all talking to each other through headphones, through headsets, to whereas they can have a conversation without it being public. We'll continue to follow this. 10 jurors have been impaneled so far out of the 14 needed. 12 will sit on the jury and 2 will be alternatives. Continue to follow us at unicornriot.ninja and check out our secondary Twitter feed at Unicorn Riot Live. We have some faster paced tweets going out. Thank you all.
Okay, I think we're ready. Oh, excuse me. Remind me to put on the record, what the reason for my ruling. Okay. How are you, Miss 48?
Good.
Okay. You may remove your mask.
Okay. Good.
Okay. All right. Just a couple follow-up questions. Thanks for filling out this rather lengthy questionnaire. We find that it makes jury selection go a lot faster, even though it was probably a pain to fill out. Okay. In response to one of the questions, you stated that you had an opinion that Daunte should not have died for something like an expired tab. The result didn't match the presumed crime.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. I guess what we need to know, it's fine to have opinions. What we need to know is whether you're able to press the restart button and listen only to the evidence that's presented in this case and the instructions that I give you in making the decision on whether or not the state has proved its case beyond a reasonable doubt. Can you do that?
Yes, I can listen to the facts and ignore my opinion.
Okay, so that restart button, you can start without any difficulty.
Yes,
right?
I can.
Okay. You stated that a close friend of yours or yourself has some connection with the law. Can you tell me what that involves? Your answer was that I worked as an administrator at a patent firm?
Yes.
Okay, that was you, right?
In the early 2000s, I worked as an office admin for a patent and trademark firm.
Okay. Do they do any criminal law at all?
No, they did international patent and trademarks.
Okay. And you have a close friend that's in that works in the area of law?
Lawyers.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you know any criminal lawyers?
Not in this state?
Okay. In other states?
Yes.
Okay. Were they defense lawyers or prosecutors?
Both. Different people would apply to both categories. So I've known some public defenders and some state.
Okay.
On the state side.
Is there any reason why you'd be leaning toward the prosecution or the defense as a result of those friendships?
No, because they're not here.
Okay. All right. You also mentioned that your cousin's girlfriend works in some investigative unit in St. Paul.
Yes.
What is her position? And she's an investigator, right?
I believe so. I don't.
All right.
I gave the fullest explanation of the knowledge that I have.
All right. Is she working for a law firm? Do you know? Or?
No. It's someone's described me the computer on CSI. She's that person, so it's not a computer looking it up. It's like this person doing all the research and looking at stuff.
Okay, gotcha. And you're willing to be a juror in this case if you're chosen by the parties, is that right?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And if you're selected as a juror, you'll be neutral, open-minded, and fair?
Correct.
Okay. Is there anything that you think the attorneys or I should know about you in deciding whether you should be a juror?
Not anything that I can think of, no.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Counsel, you may proceed.
Good afternoon, 48.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask you some questions about the questionnaire and touching on your qualifications as a juror. As you know, I represent Kim Potter along with Paul Lang and Amanda Montgomery.
Yes.
And the reason we do this is the fact that we do not know anything about you, and what we do know is in this questionnaire. And the questionnaire doesn't really tell us a lot either. A lot of questions, but some of the questions raise other questions. So bear with me. With respect to what you saw on the incident, you recited, what do you know about this case from media reports? And then you gave a little history of what you saw regarding my client, Kim Potter, when she was a police officer, and Daunte Wright. Would you be able to take that outside the courtroom and leave it there and listen to what you hear in here and what you see in here and rely on that evidence and not this media rush that you saw when this thing happened?
Yes, I would be able to ignore the media is the media. The court is what we're doing here. The court decides, not the media.
Okay. And in the next page, you write a few more statements about what the media has represented to the public. And one of these is, Daunte should not have died for something like expired tabs. The result didn't match the presumed crime. Well, I think, can you block that aside, that he was killed for expired tabs, and rely on what you hear in this courtroom?
Yes, sir, I can.
Keep that out of here and don't even compare it with what you hear.
That was
That's out there.
out the door, yes.
All right. I have a question. You say that you attended a rally at the Minnesota Ice Center near the airport.
Mm-hmm.
Could you tell me what the Ice Center is? I'm not familiar with it.
Immigration and Customs,
Okay.
those folks.
What kind of rally did you attend?
It was, and pardon me, I looked up the date, so if it's on the sheet, that's where it is, but protesting of children being in cages at the border.
Oh, okay. All right. I looked up, you have podcasts here that you watch. You remember putting those down?
Yeah, probably.
And one of them was Tights and Fights.
Yes.
And
That's
I watched part of that.
Professional wrestling
Right.
podcast, yes.
And there's another one here, One Bad Mother. What's that about?
It's about a little bit of reality in parenting.
Okay.
So
And
there may be swears.
since
with your kids.
you have 2 young children, I suppose that one
Yes, sir.
that you watch quite well.
Yes.
Another answer to a question about people have put up yard signs and posted on social media. That question was about, have you or someone close to you ever helped support or advocated in favor or against police reform? And you say people, is that your neighbors or somebody?
My neighbors, my friends on social media, my friends in real life. I've seen a lot of it.
Have you posted any of that yourself? You have a yard sign in your yard?
I do not have any yard signs now.
No yard sign? Any bumper stickers?
One referencing Doctor Who.
Okay. I don't think I'm concerned with that one.
Okay.
And also, have you ever been you or someone close to you, ever been the victim of a crime where the police were called? And you say yes. And then you've got after accidents and after robberies,
Yes.
break-ins. Let's start with the accidents.
Car accidents. So my sister was involved in a car accident. I saw it. I called the police.
Okay. And were you satisfied with that?
Yes.
Okay, because you have neutral here.
Yeah, I would just everyone did what they were supposed to. There was no issues.
All right. And what about the robbery break-ins? Have you experienced robberies yourself?
My neighbor did. I saw they had a trailer in their backyard, and then one day I came and the trailer door was open. So I tried knocking on their door and they weren't home. So in order to alleviate that situation, because it clearly looked like it had been pried open, I did call the police in reference to that.
And did they show up?
I didn't see them, but my neighbor said that they eventually got in contact with him.
Okay. So you did not have much to do with that then?
No, not really.
And that's why you're somewhat satisfied? No, excuse me. You have X neutral.
Yeah, functioning as expected.
Now we go to the graph that we have in this questionnaire. And the one question I want to ask you about and see if you remember answering it. Some of these questions, I didn't draw this up. Somebody with more power than me did. And some of these questions are a little bit confusing. And one of the questions, police in my community make me feel safe. Remember answering that question?
No.
Okay, well, what is on the paper is 2, and 2 says somewhat disagree. Do you disagree with that the police in your community do not make you feel safe?
I guess it's not like I don't see a police officer and go, oh, I'm safe. And just kind of, I don't know, I guess I'm just nervous around anybody in authority sometimes.
Okay.
It could be a personal feeling more than a
Have you had
judgment.
any bad experiences with police officers?
No.
All right. Anybody close to you Ever had a bad experience with a police officer?
No.
Okay. So it's just your own personal feelings
Yeah.
when you're around somebody of authority.
I don't feel safe next to a firefighter necessarily, if
Okay.
that's an
A
analogous.
school teacher? All right. So you grew up on a farm,
Yes, sir.
and you don't need to tell me in this state, other state?
Other state.
Okay. And you, when you were working, what was your employment?
IT project manager.
What does that mean?
Information technology project manager. So I did project management for computer firms or tech companies.
So you have a computer background?
Yes, sir.
You have 2 young children, 6 and 5?
Yes.
And your last answer in the questionnaire, you want to serve as a juror in this case, you said yes.
Yes.
And you said, I have never been a juror, and I want to do my civic duty. Doesn't matter what the case is, just want to serve.
Yes, sir.
Now you have a familiarity with what this case is. Do you still want to serve?
Yes.
Okay. Be a fair and impartial juror in this case?
Yes, I will.
And what that means is that you wait until all of the evidence is in, including the evidence we will present on behalf of Ms. Potter. And then after you hear the judge's instructions on the law and reasonable doubt and presumption of innocence, you then, relying on the law and the evidence you believe, you come to a conclusion. Can you do that?
Yes, I can.
And you can do that fairly?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. That's all I have. I guess we have one more question.
Okay.
You were an election judge,
Yes, sir.
and how do you do that? What's that about?
I work through the city and facilitate running of elections. So this year was a head judge, and I ran a precinct within the city of Minneapolis.
Okay. And you did that, were you employed or a civic duty? Did you-
Employed.
Employed?
Okay. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
That's all I have. We'll pass the jury, Your Honor.
Mr. Green? Let's do it, Ms. American. Ask questions.
Good afternoon. Juror 48. So I apologize for being somewhat impersonal. It's just the way we're doing it in this case, so sorry about that. But you grew up on a farm, had some guns around the farm, it sounds like.
Yes.
A lot of times those are for, shall we say, pest control?
And hunting.
And so it was more than that, okay. And did you yourself use them for hunting?
No, I did not.
Okay, so it was more just that they were around. Well, and I guess the easier way to ask this is, what was your experience handling them? Did you have much?
Very little, just no interest. So I would carry if someone asked me to carry a gun for them, or just kind of rudimentary tasks. Nothing, not like loading or unloading, just kind of around them and maybe carrying them.
And your dad did some of that teaching?
Yes.
And so was he an avid hunter?
Yes, he was.
Other members of your family avid?
Yes.
Bear with me too a little bit, because coming third in line means a lot of my questions have already been asked, and I
Quite all right.
just take a moment rather than re-asking. That's all right. You had two grandfathers in the military.
Yes, sir.
Did you talk to them much about their experience in the military?
Not much, as World War II, and I was a lot younger, so it was pretty broad strokes and that kind of thing.
Not a big part of your life in that sense, or you knew a lot about it?
I knew the basics, but I didn't know details.
Yeah, I'm not saying that your grandparents were not a big part of your life, but their military service wasn't a big part of your relationship. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
Your cousin's girlfriend, so, doing some kind of investigative function in St. Paul. Mm-hmm. Is it related to like a forensic lab, or is it more like police investigative work? Is that...
I really wish I would have researched this more.
You've actually just answered my question.
My lack of knowledge, I've given all the information I have on the subject.
And as I asked the question, I realized, is this where she said that I already wrote down everything I know about it? So is that's
yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So that then it answers my question that this isn't something that you and her talk about a lot, or no difficulty setting that fact aside from what you hear in the
That
story.
would be no issue.
And it sounds like you've got two kids at home, but as long as you get some notice, no problem covering for that.
Correct.
If you can excuse me for just a second, Your Honor, may I have a moment, please? Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor. We have no further questions. We pass the juror.
You will be a juror in this case, okay? We still expect to start on December 8th, but we may start earlier. You'll get a call from the jury office telling you when we're going to start, what time, and where to report, okay? So have a great evening, and thank you for coming.
You too.
Counsel, we're going to be taking a break, but before we do, I want to deal with the Batson challenge that was made by the state to juror number 46. The defense exercised one of their preemptory challenges to 46. She was a young Asian female. Under Rule 2602, Subdivision 6, the party making the objection, the state in this case, must make a prima facie showing that the responding party, the defense, exercise its peremptory challenge on the basis of race or gender. I found that no prima facie case of the challenge being made on the basis of race or gender was made out by the state. I should note that we already have 2 Asian jurors on this case. Okay, we're going to take a 20-minute break.
All right, so the break is coming up in a moment. We will show some video. In the meantime, we have the 11th juror decided now to be on the panel. Again, right now the break will go until about 3:20 from my understanding. We're going to bring you back to play the protest video that we were showing. And you see right now, this is the video that Live View is showing us. This is the video that we get piped to us. And we do not have a choice on this feed. So that is why they're showing just this fire extinguisher. We'll be back in 20 minutes. We'll be back in about 18 minutes. I'll bring you back before the break. In the meantime, again, we will play this footage from the other day in front of the government center before the car attack happened. This will go for about 12 minutes and then we'll be back. Thank you all for tuning in. This is Nico from Unicorn Riot. Check out our Twitter feed. Alex is over there doing some rapid tweets at Unicorn Riot Live. And check out our main Twitter feed, UR_Ninja.
Any of the families, I always offer the floor to the families that have lost people first and foremost. So any of the families want to say a few words, and any of the people in our community who have been standing and fighting with all of our families, if you guys would like to say a few words this evening, we would appreciate it because we're so grateful for everybody that showed up this evening. You could be anywhere doing anything. You could be hanging out with your families, but you choose to be out here with our families, and that will never go unnoticed. It will never go unappreciated what you guys sacrifice and how much you even bring your babies and your children out here. Even every last person that's out here, even the other families that have built strength enough to be out here. Let's continue to work together and let's continue to love on each other. Let's continue to fight together. Let's not let them see us separated from one another. Let's let them see us standing in solidarity and shutting this shit down. If Daunte don't get it, shut it 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 down. Thank you. Any other families want to say a few words? We have the mother of Jeffrey Smith, who was killed by St. Paul police, shot 49 to 52 times. Hello, everyone. Hello. Thank you, guys. Thank you for all your support. Thank you all for coming out. Love all of you. We want justice, and we want it now. We want justice for Daunte Wright. We want Kim Potter's convicted to the highest and the fullest. What gives you the right to take his life? We're tired. We're really tired of your cover-ups. We're tired of your BCA cover-ups. We're tired of your prosecutorial cover-ups. We're tired of your government cover-ups. We need justice. We're gonna get it by any means necessary. We don't care who don't like it. This is wrong. She was a trainer. What was she training? Training people how to kill? What is she training? We need her gone. She has to go. Kim Potter, you have to go. You are gonna go, Kim Potter. It's totally sickening. What you did to Daunte Wright, you're not gonna get away with it. We're tired of your cover-ups. We're tired of all of this. Your trainings of other cops to kill, that's enough. We're gonna get justice, and we're gonna see to it. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so now we'll just have a few here. We'll have like 3 here, and then we'll get going on the march because we don't want to lose people, and we got the streets blocked off and stuff. So we're gonna have Courtney Ross, the significant other of George Floyd. Thank you.
Ooh, thank y'all again for coming out tonight. I'm quickly gonna thank you. When I could not get out of bed and I could not take one step, I knew everyone was out here marching for Floyd, and I will never give enough thanks for that. It will be forever, so thank you. Daunte Wright was a student of mine at Edison High School. I worked with him every single day. One of the last times I saw Daunte, my arms were around him, and I didn't know that that would be the moment that I'd have to remember. I also am a mother. I have 2 sons. One of my sons is 21 years old. He's light complected, comes from a biracial family. He's athletic. He also loves basketball. And he goes around the north side in Brooklyn Center as much as Daunte did. Daunte is all of our sons. We need to remember that when this happens. Daunte is my son, Daunte is your son. Lord knows he's the right son. He is. I want to say about Kim Potter, like Tashira said, she's been profiling Black people in Brooklyn Center for a long time now. And she took advantage of her position and murdered Daunte. Everyone that was trained under her, and as I've heard, her husband, who does taser training, should be retrained. Make sure that this never happens again. Yes. Rest in peace, Daunte. Love you.
Black lives. Black lives. Black lives. Have the co-founder of BLM Minnesota, Monique Kohler's Dottie, and the aunt of Marcus Golden come up and say a few words.
Thank you all. Thank you all for being out here. It's so important that we continue to stand up for justice, and we have to make sure that Daunte is not forgotten, right? So we have to continue to be out here. We cannot let up. It's just how we do it here in the Twin Cities, which is why I love you all in the community who comes out to support families. So on this day, standing in solidarity with the family, I offer my prayers and my love and all the solidarity in the world, whatever we can do. We've been doing work for Daunte. Many people have been out. So thank you all for being out here. And we just want to remember, Daunte's gotten so much further than the majority of families across the country in terms of the possibility of getting justice. And we haven't seen it here very often, right? We saw it with just George Floyd and then even Justine DeMond, which some may say that was not even justice because of the charges. But I'm just so proud that that video was released. I'm so happy for the family that they had that bit of evidence because so many weren't filmed, right? Tucson Psych Public Media had an event for those who weren't filmed. How many weren't filmed? So although it seems like it's such a hard day and a horrible day for the family, I'm sure it is. But I want you to know that it's also a blessing because so many of us didn't get a chance to sit in a courtroom, right? So out of everything negative, we can take something positive. So we want to look at this at least as a positive thing, that this killer cop, Kim Potter, is going to prison, and that's where she needs to be. There's no excuse for what she did. Her pulling a taser, pulling a gun and yelling taser is no different than many times we see Black men, women, and children who are killed, and they yell, "Oh, put down the knife." There's no knife, right? They're just setting the stage. He's got a gun. There's no gun, but they're just setting the stage, right? So what Kim thought she was doing, she thought she was setting the stage. She's yelling, "Taser, taser, taser," knowing she had a gun. Knowing she had a gun. Also, we know what she could have done. She could have just let him go. They knew who he was. They knew his address. He was not an international flight risk, right? There was no need. Additionally, she put other people in harm's way by killing him while he is driving a vehicle. And it's ridiculous. Kim Potter is a killer cop, and she needs to be imprisoned for a long time. No justice, no peace. No justice!
No peace!
No justice!
No peace!
No justice!
No peace!
No justice!
No peace!
No killer!
Police!
No killer!
Police!
That's right. Thank y'all for being out here. Love and solidarity to you all.
Black lives matter. Black lives matter. Black lives matter. justice. No peace. No justice. No peace. No justice. No peace. No justice. No peace. All right, we have one more speaker before we get started. She's gonna link some of this. Daunte Wright's family?
Yes.
Okay.
Are we ready here? Okay. It's good to see so many people out here today. I'm old enough to be the great-grandmother of some of you out here today. And this struggle has been going on for a long time. I remember the Black Panthers and other folks who were out fighting this fight way back in the 60s, and even before that we had people who were dealing with police brutality. The thing that strikes me is that this is really a systems issue. Color of the oppressor doesn't matter. Gender of the oppressor doesn't matter. And so it's good that we have a multiracial fight back against this. And let's all keep organizing and hoping that Kim Potter gets justice from the system and ends up getting the maximum sentence that she can possibly get for this murder. Daunte is a grandson of my niece and her husband, and that's how I happen to be related to him. And it's important that, to me, that so many people of you and all of us are out here supporting the family and other victims of police brutality. Thank you.
Okay, everyone, I just wanted to mention a few other families that came out to stand in solidarity before we take off on the march. We have, so you heard from Monique Coyote. We also have the mother of Hardell Sherrill, Delshia Perry, who is out here. We have the grandfather of Brian Quinones that is out here with us today. We have Daunte Wright family and Phil Quinn and Billy Hugh family out here this evening. And we have, I was told that Kim Handy Jones, the mother of Cordell Handy, is out here with us this evening. And then we have myself for Justin Tigan that is standing in solidarity. So we have a number of families, and we have so many other families that just, they couldn't be out here tonight, but they stand in solidarity with Daunte Wright's family. And so we're going to take off on the march at this point, so we won't lose our crowd, and then we will stop mid-march and we'll have a few more speakers and we'll get going like that. Treyhorn, do you want to start leading us with some chants so we can get going on the march? Thank you all.
Again, thank you all for joining. This is Nico from Unicorn Riot. We have Alex over on the Unicorn Riot Live Twitter feed that's doing some tweets. We are on afternoon break right now. 11 jurors have been impaneled out of 14 in the Kim Potter trial. Once the break resumes, we will have more questioning from first the judge and then the defense and then the prosecution to see if they can seat any more jurors today. Again, there's 14 total that they're looking for. 11 have been impaneled. 12 will serve on the jury, and 2 will serve as alternates. It is a big deal that this trial is being broadcast live. As we saw with the Chauvin trial this last year, it was very high-profile killing of what many deemed as a public lynching by the police of another black man. While that trial was happening, we had Daunte Wright killed. Daunte Wright killed. They released the body camera footage the next day. The police chief and city manager were sacked. Kim Potter was allowed to resign, therefore keeping her pension, and was charged with second-degree manslaughter. Then she was charged with first-degree manslaughter in September. After she was charged with second-degree manslaughter, she was actually bonded out and actually received security detail at her house by a bunch of police officers. So we have about 3 minutes before we come back into the court proceedings. In that meantime, we will go over real quick Daunte Wright's birthday party celebration. Just happened last month, and we'll be ready to click over to the court if court proceedings happen to start before this video is done. Very short video, but we'll be showing it, and this is just some of the pain that Daunte Wright's family has to feel, is feeling, and then also some of the celebration that they were trying to celebrate Daunte Wright's life. Bring you to this video, and we'll be right back.
Say his name!
Daunte Wright!
Say his name!
Daunte Wright!
Say his name! Daunte Wright!
Hello, everybody. Today we gather in Brooklyn Center Community Center to celebrate Daunte's 21st birthday. While we're celebrating memories and happy times when we should actually be celebrating him here with us. Unfortunately, Brooklyn Center police failed us, and that's why we're here today celebrating his memory.
I do want to thank everybody for coming out here and showing my family support, because we really do need it. Again, we want to make sure that we get some type of justice for my brother and my sister, because they should never have to view their son, excuse me y'all, could y'all spread hurt real fast? They should never have to come home to see their son like this, as well as that beautiful urn. They don't deserve this. We're just asking for some type of justice and just support. We really need the community support. And whatever y'all can do, please do. Whatever you can say, please say. My brother and sister should not be going through this. These are some of the most beautiful people in the world, and the children that they have created. My nieces suffering, my nephews suffering. We just ask if we can get some type of justice and continue the support. Say his name!
Daunte Wright!
Say his name!
Daunte Wright!
Say his name!
So you saw the aunt of Daunte finishing out that video, asking for support for the family. The family is going through a lot, obviously. The residual impacts of police killings are very widespread. You know, the family, first and foremost, the mother, the father, the close family members, then the further family members, and then you have the friends, beyond the friends, you got the community. And then if it's a televised incident, like they put out the body camera footage of Daunte Wright, like the George Floyds, like the other ones across the country, it just imbues enormous and immense amount of pain and emotional trauma on a lot of the community. And specifically, if we're talking about is Black Death, you know, then that's another thing. So a lot of this violence from the state is incurred upon people who are black, brown, and other folks of color. And that's what we see here in this case, where we have a white police officer who's shot and killed black youth. So we have the trial slated to begin now. And we'll see if the afternoon break comes back in the next minutes. I'm guessing it will. Again, we have 11 jurors impaneled. We are seeking, they are seeking 14 to be impaneled, and 12 will sit on the jury, 2 will sit as alternatives. The slated date for start of the opening statements was December 8th. The other days during the jury selection, the judge, Regina Chu, has mentioned that they would like to take at least a day between jury selection and opening statements. They're slated to start again December 8th, but if that starts before then, that's a possibility, as the judge said. December 8th is next Wednesday. If they get 3 more jury members by, let's say, tomorrow or today, then I'm sure they might start the 6th or the 7th. We'll see, though. There was, again, 10 jurors impaneled in the first 2 days, very fast. And here we go. Back from afternoon break. Continue to follow us at unicornriot.ninja and our secondary Twitter feed, Unicorn Riot Live.
Okay, just so I don't screw this up, are we on 51? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Frank. I did it twice in a row. Okay, thank you, Debbie. Hello, Ms. 51. Please have a seat. Okay, you may remove your mask. Okay. First of all, thank you for filling out that lengthy questionnaire. I just have a couple of follow-up questions. All right. I know it's been a long time since you've filled this out, so I'll remind you about what you said if you don't remember. On the questionnaire, you stated that you had a somewhat negative general impression of defendant Kimberly Potter, and you expressed some opinions that she should have known this and should have done that. And you've also expressed the general impression that you had of Daunte Wright, which was somewhat negative as well. And, you know, that's perfectly fine. You also have some opinions on whether her actions were careless, whether he should have ran and disrespected police officers. And, you know, that's just fine to have opinions like that. But my question is, can you press the restart button and listen only to the evidence that's presented in this case and the instructions of law that I give you, and base your decision on whether or not the state has proven Ms. Potter guilty or not guilty, based solely on that and not on any general impressions that you had before?
Yeah, I believe
Okay.
I can.
Okay. Can you give me more affirmative answer?
Yes, yes. So one part of the questionnaire, I remember that question. I remember it asking that. And what it comes down to for me is I wasn't there. Like, I didn't see everything that happened. I didn't see his actions or hers. So I'm in a position now where I can hear more and, you know, learn more based on, like, the actual evidence, actually what happened that day.
Okay.
From people that know a lot more about the situation than I do. So I think I can base my, I guess, my opinion or base what I think about what happened that day on what I hear here as opposed to what may have been in the media back then.
Okay, very good. So open-minded.
Right.
And
right.
you'll listen to all the evidence before you make up your mind.
Right, right. I need to hear all sides before I really make up my mind about a person on regardless of what's going on or what I think may have happened that day.
Okay, very good. Thank you. It's interesting that your brother-in-law is in the National Guard and he was on protection during the Derek Chauvin trial. What was his position? Was he, do you know if he was outside the courthouse or inside or?
He was outside. He was not inside the courthouse.
Okay. And what did he tell you about his experience, if anything, while that was going on?
He said it was really strange because he would go from being yelled at, basically, just because people were angry at that trial, to going inside where people were very respectful towards him and thankful that he was there. So it was sort of, you know, like when they would serve him lunch and there were people that were volunteering to do that. And he's like, it was just such a bizarre experience because he got to see the people that were there that were grateful that he was there, and then also the other side where people were very angry.
Okay. Is that going to affect your, does that make you lean one way or the other on this case?
No.
Having discussed that with him.
Because his experience was positive on one end and negative on one end. And he didn't talk about it a whole lot. It was just more or less that it was, I think the only thing that it drove home for me was that it's a little scary thinking about being part of, even just as a juror in a trial like that. So.
Okay. How do you feel about being a juror in this case?
A little scared, but I mean, it's just, I think there's a lot of polarization right now, and that part of it scares me because there's people that are very extreme on both sides. So.
Okay. When you say you're scared, can you elaborate on that a little?
I guess one of the things I was concerned about was, like, it's being televised. You know, like, are people going to know that I was a juror here? And is that going to cause them to be either angry at me or feel like they need to voice their opinion about things? And I guess that was a major thing I was worried about. I just didn't know that I wasn't going to be on camera. And I guess that was more what I was worried about. I don't want that.
I want to assure you that you will not be on camera. You're not on camera now, and you won't be on camera during the trial if you're chosen as a juror. Okay? Absolutely. I ordered that, and no one's going to violate my order on that.
Okay.
Let's talk about your concerns about your identity being public. Will you make your decision based on the evidence and not on any reaction you think that the community might have to your verdict, whether it's guilty or not guilty?
I think that it wouldn't be right for me to base my decision on what other people think, because they weren't there, and they're also not going to be in this room. So
Okay.
it's, I don't know, my sense of fairness, it wouldn't allow me to do that.
You told us that you have been a victim of a crime where police were called, and it was a welfare check where your brother-in-law threatened people in your family.
Yeah.
Okay. And what was your reaction to how the police responded? Were you satisfied with the way they responded?
Yeah, they responded quickly, and their major concern was for the safety of my sister and her family.
Okay.
So,
And was your brother-in-law arrested, or what happened?
Yes.
Okay. And was he charged with any crimes? And if so, do you think that justice was done?
that would still be pending, I believe. But
Okay.
no, at this point he hasn't been yet.
Okay. Okay, you stated that you have friends who are police officers,
Mhm.
and that's why you know someone that's been shocked or stunned by a taser. You remember in the beginning I was asking you about police officers and whether or not you could evaluate and determine whether a police officer was credible, and you wouldn't give more credence to a police officer's testimony nor discount a police officer's testimony just because they are in law enforcement.
Right.
So you would use the guidelines that I
Yeah.
gave you to determine credibility.
Right.
Okay.
Police officers are still people.
Yeah, okay. Good answer. And the fact that you are friends with the police officer isn't going to make you believe them more than other witnesses, will it?
No.
Okay. Your sister went to law school. Is she practicing law?
No, she worked as a law clerk for a while. She's taken the bar exam a couple of times, but not in this state.
Okay. And your maybe this is the same sister, works for Wright County Sheriff's Office.
No, it's a different sister.
Okay. And what does your sister that works for Wright County, the Sheriff's Office, do?
She works on like police vehicles and just sort of like their supplies, hats, gloves, electronics. She makes sure that the cars are having everything that they need in them for them to do
Okay,
their jobs.
gotcha.
Mhm.
And you have a degree in criminal justice.
Right.
Okay. When did you get that degree?
Oh gosh, when was that? I want to say 2008.
Okay. And your degree emphasized forensic science. Can you explain what you're kind of an expert at?
So it focused on forensic science, where it was like crime scene analysis, so like the appropriate way to approach a crime scene, chain of evidence, that kind of stuff. It went into the importance of that as far as like legal standards go, but yeah, it was more or less, I kind of focused in more on the biology aspect of it because I have a biology degree as well. So.
Okay, so can you explain the biology aspect of it?
So studying bugs, rate of decay, and sort of how that applies to like a crime scene. So like if there's a dead body there, like how to approach that, and the appropriate way to store that evidence, and the appropriate way to analyze it, that kind of thing.
Gotcha. There's probably going to be evidence of that sort in this case. would you be able to rely on the evidence on that subject in this case and not what you learned in school?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if it's not in evidence in this case, you can not fill in the blanks with what you learned. Okay. You wouldn't do that,
No,
right?
I would not do
Okay.
that. No.
You stated that your uncle and aunt were robbed while on vacation. When did that happen, and did they call the police?
That happened, gosh, I want to say probably about 10 years ago. They did call the police, and the police came and I believe interviewed the neighbors and such just to kind of get an idea of how this happened.
Okay. Did they express to you any dissatisfaction with how the police handled it?
No, it was more frustration at the situation because there was really no way they were going to get everything back.
Okay. And the culprit was never found, right?
No, not as far as I know.
Okay. And you served on a criminal case before.
Yes.
It was a alleged drug, well, it was a drug offense.
Right.
How did you find the experience being a juror?
I mean, it was enlightening, I'll say that. I'd never been through a criminal trial before. But yeah, it was, I guess, interesting just to talk with the other people that were also on the jury and sort of get their viewpoint on things and sort of discuss it and come to a conclusion that way. So it was very cooperative, I would say.
All right. And you could see that talking with other jurors helped you make a decision?
Yeah.
Okay. The questionnaire asked, the jury must decide the case solely on the evidence produced in court and the law that I instruct, and not because of bias, passion, prejudice, or sympathy. The question on the questionnaire was, would you be able to follow this principle of law? And you said, I think so.
Right.
Okay. I need something more either positive or negative. You know, a lot of times I've noticed this when I've been going through these questionnaires. I mean, there's a Minnesota way of saying yes and a Minnesota way of saying no.
It's not very decisive. Yeah.
So, can you answer that question one way or the other?
You know, you explained it today, and sometimes it, you know, reading it on a sheet of paper versus somebody explaining it to you is very different. So, yes, I can decide based on the law and based on what I hear in the courtroom.
Okay. On whether you could serve, your answer to the question on the questionnaire is, my bank is going through an acquisition and I am in a leadership position.
Right.
How is that acquisition going? And
it's going well. The biggest concern I had, because I'm in a leadership position for a team, that I wouldn't be there to help them through training and do stuff like that. There was a lot up in the air when I answered all of these questions, and now things are a lot more stable. So I just didn't know where everything was going to be. Those acquisitions always go on for so long, years even, and sometimes the instability lasts for a long time.
Okay, so your concern really has lessened.
Yes, it has.
All right. And would that acquisition prevent you from concentrating, or, you know, the training that you have to do, would that prevent you from concentrating on the evidence here?
No.
Okay.
No.
And you're willing to serve as a juror here if selected?
Yes.
Okay. I don't mean to get real personal, but you have a severe gluten allergy.
Yes.
And so if you were selected as a juror, we would make sure that you would get a gluten-free lunch.
Okay.
Okay, so I think that would be possible. Yes, my law
Okay.
clerk says yes.
Okay, good.
All right. One question is there any reason that you could not be a fair and impartial juror in this case? And please explain. And you said not at this time. What did you mean by that?
So as hard as you try sometimes to avoid reading stuff about a certain trial or hearing things in the media, I mean, social media is sometimes the worst. When I was filling out that questionnaire, it was far enough in advance because I read also the letter where it's like, oh, you'll hear something at the end of November, and I'm like, well, that's months away, and I don't know, like, am I going to hear something? Is something else going to happen in that period of time that could influence me? It was just hard for me to put a definitive answer there, but as it stands right now, no.
Okay, great. You indicated that you didn't want your information to be compromised or released as a result of this. What were you referring to?
So I guess I was concerned too that, there was something, I wanted to say it was in the more recent letter we got to that said that certain things after the trial was over would become public. And I guess I didn't know what all of that meant. Does that mean that my name would become public? Will they know? Because I mean, they at least know the county I live in, and I work in fraud, so like having my name out there and potentially having any sort of, I guess, negative ramifications from doing this. That was the biggest thing I was worried about.
Okay. Do you want to serve as a juror in this case?
I mean, I guess I will if it's needed, but if I had a choice right now whether or not I had to, I would say no.
Okay, but you're willing to serve if
Yes.
the parties pick you as a juror?
Yes.
Okay. You indicated that at the time that you filled out the questionnaire, you stated a concern that if the trial doesn't go a certain way, you would be targeted. Now, I guess my question is, this concern that you have, will that affect your decision on whether or not you find the defendant guilty or not guilty?
Knowing what I know now, no.
Okay. Is there anything else that you think we should know about you?
No, not that I can think of at the moment, no.
Okay. Thank you. All right, Counsel.
Good afternoon. I'm Earl Gray, Paul Ann, Kim Potter, and Amanda Montgomery. We're the lawyers representing Kim Potter. The judge asked you many questions touching upon your qualifications and this questionnaire. I just have a few follow-ups on that.
Okay.
In your answer, do you want to serve as a juror in this case? You put no, and now have you changed your mind?
If it comes to preference, I would prefer not to. But I like the legal system. I like how it functions, so I'm willing to serve.
All right. I'll back up to the question before that. Is there anything else the judge and attorney should know about you in relation to serving on this jury. I don't want my information to be compromised or released as a result of this. And then on the next question, 10, you say that I'll leave out parts of this, but you say that you're painfully aware of how easily computers can be hacked and information compromised. I get that this is a voluntary service, because as I stated earlier, this is an emotionally charged issue, and the public will be following it closely. And that's the way you felt back then, and you still feel that way?
I still think the issue is emotionally charged for people, if that's your question.
No, the question is on computers being hacked and your name being out there.
Right. That is something I'm still concerned about.
Okay. And that, as I understand it, and maybe the court will correct me, at some point in time in the future, not right away, but sometime after the trial is over, I believe the media requires that the jurors be disclosed. Are you aware of that?
I was after I got the more recent letter.
Okay.
Yeah.
And does that cause you any hesitation? And the reason, I'll back up. The reason I'm asking this is because obviously if my client, our client, is found guilty, that's one thing. But if our client is found not guilty, there might be a substantial concern in the streets. And
Council, I'm sorry, hold on, please.
As we see sidebars happening, this is potential juror number 51 that is being questioned right now. The defense was questioning defense attorney Earl Gray. Some of the last conversation was about her saying that she, or her writing that she knows that computers could be hacked, and she's worried about her name being out there. So we are seeing right now the discussion. The judge called the sidebar. She said, no, stop your questioning. Let's get to the sidebar. This is Nico from Unicorn Riot. Continue to follow our Twitter feed, Unicorn Riot Live, where Alex is tweeting some rapid tweets. And check out our landing page at our website, unicornride.ninja, where you see the Kim Potter graphic. Click into there and you can find the live streams. We're going to be updating that a little bit later tonight. Thank you all for joining. We get back to the court. Right now the audio is out, as you can see. There is a sidebar conversation. Again, that is when the judge, prosecution, and the defense are all on headphones speaking to each other. Sometimes there is only one team talking to the judge. Most of the time it is both teams. And right now it is both teams.
Okay, you may continue, Mr. Gray.
Thank you. In the questionnaire, you mentioned that you had some contact with the police. I'm trying to, have you or someone close to you ever been arrested for a crime? And you put yes. Remember that question?
Yes.
Okay. And if yes, how did the police handle the arrest? And you checked they acted unprofessionally. Do you recall that answer?
They acted unprofessionally?
That's what it says. You check that box.
Yes. Yes, I remember that. Yeah, it was one scenario. Is that what you're asking? You want to?
I'm asking you about it, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so it was a cousin of mine. It was a stupid prank she and her friends were doing. They were mooning their friends, or who they thought were their friends, in a car in front of them. And it actually happened to be a police car, and they pulled her over, and he called for backup and decided to basically surround her. There was a large police presence there for a dumb prank. And I thought in that scenario he reacted a little too strongly.
Okay, and were you there?
No, I was not.
Was it reported to you at some later date?
Yes.
Above that, or excuse me, the next page, on page 6, question 1, you're asked about the defendant, Kimberly Potter, was an officer for Brooklyn Center Police Department. Is there anything about her employment with BCPD that would prevent you from rendering a fair and impartial verdict in this case? And what you say is, I tend to have sympathy for the police in that area because a friend of mine told me about the lack of support they get. He quit working for them because of that. let's go back to the in that area. What did you mean by in that area?
Brooklyn Center, sort of the suburbs of the Twin Cities.
Can you speak up into the mic? Thank you.
The suburbs of the Twin Cities, like Brooklyn Center, Maple Grove, that kind of area. That's where he worked, and he said that he didn't get a lot of support when he was there. So there was a time where he was sent out on a call by himself, and he left because of that. He didn't feel safe doing his job.
Because of the police department?
Yeah, he felt he didn't have the support he needed.
Then finally, question 5 on page 13. Under our system of justice, the defendant has the right to remain silent, and if she exercises that right, her silence is not to be used against her. Would you be able to follow this principle of law? And you have a criminal justice background, do you not?
Yes.
And you learned that back then that you have a right to remain silent and nothing can be held against you, is that right?
That's right.
But you answer, this would be hard. I would wonder what she's hiding. What did you mean by that?
It would be hard. I guess it's the one thing that I always wonder, if the person who's being tried chooses not to speak. I always wonder why. Are they hiding something? Is it something where they feel it's best not to speak, and let the evidence speak for itself? I would wonder why.
Well, when a judge instructs at the end of the case where a defendant has not testified, you're told that that's not to enter your mind.
No.
Pardon me?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I haven't heard anything else.
Well, would you be able to follow the court's instruction?
Yes.
No?
Yes, I would be able to
You
follow
would be
the
able
court's
to?
instructions.
So
Yes.
this answer is incorrect in the questionnaire?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, that's all I have. Give us a minute. We'll exercise a preempt, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming today. Thank you so much for coming today, and thank you for all your answers and filling out the questionnaire. You're excused from this jury, all right? Have a good evening. Thank you. Yes, thank you, Deputy. Hello, Ms. 52. Thank you for being so patient. I know you've been waiting a while. Will you please remove your mask? Thank you. Okay. I appreciate you taking the time to fill out your questionnaire. I want to talk to you about some of your answers. In response to the question of whether you had a general impression of defendant Kimberly Potter, you said very negative. And do you remember your answer that one of your close friends has been interrogated by Ms. Potter? Can you tell me about what you know about that, and were you there when your friend was questioned?
So I was not there, but it was part of a hit and run. It was actually that my friend was in pain, sitting in the back of a car, and this other girl was with us, and she was driving. She did not have a driver's license, so she ran a stop sign, hit a car, and they just went. Later that day, she gets a call from a detective, and I'm assuming that it's from Detective Potter. And so the police went to their apartment, and instead of interrogating my friend about...
Can I back up a minute?
Okay.
Okay, your friend was in a car that was hit by a car.
No. They were that car that she owned or was driving was the one that hit the other car.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then they drove away.
Yeah.
Your friend or whoever was driving your friend's car drove away. Okay.
And so while they're at the apartment, Detective Potter was there and speaking to my friend. And instead of interrogating her about the hit and run, she was interrogating her about her boyfriend, who is black. So I don't, and he was not even part of there. He was not part of the situation. He was just, I think he was doing a job. He was at his work or something.
Oh, what type of questions was she allegedly asking about her boyfriend?
Oh, I guess there wasn't more questions about the boyfriend. It was more interrogating her of why would you be with a guy like that? He's a bad influence for you.
Oh, I get it. Okay. And your friend is black or what race?
She is mixed. She's Native American black, she's white, but she's very light skinned, and she has kind of a blondish hair as she dyed it. So she looks white.
Okay. And she related to you that Officer Potter asked her or told her that she shouldn't be with her boyfriend because he was a bad influence? Because he was black?
Because he was black and because he was a bad influence. And that he would be a bad influence to her.
Okay. And this is what she told you. You were not there at the time.
I was not there, but this is what she told me. When she found out that it was Detective Potter about this case, she confronted me, and she's just like, "Hey, so I've had personal experience with this person."
When did she tell you this?
This would have been. When she told me this would have been about May this year.
Okay. And you're really close to this friend of yours? Okay. And I take it that you believed what your friend told you?
Yes.
And how do you feel about what she told you?
Well, I completely trust her. I don't think she would ever lie to me about this. So I felt very bothered by it because I know her boyfriend. We were friends and everything. So to hear that, it was just very bothersome.
Okay. I think you mentioned that Detective Potter said that the boyfriend was a bad influence. Did I hear you right?
Yeah, you're correct.
Okay. What else did she say, if anything, about the boyfriend being a bad influence?
I think all she said is that it was probably of the line of the hit and run, so it was your fault. he's probably like, he's a bad influence on you. This is what happened now.
Okay. Was he driving the car at the time?
He was not there at all.
Okay. All right. Of course, I need to ask you this. Given what your friend told you, are you going to be able to set that aside, what your friend told you, and listen to the evidence in this case and base your decision on whether or not the state has proven the charges beyond a reasonable doubt based solely on the evidence? Or
So I feel like I've had personal issues with the police, as in the police have murdered my uncle, and they just haven't treated my family right. So it's very hard to put that aside. I personally do not think I should be a part of this jury, because I know that what had happened was 3 blocks from where I used to live, and it's very hard to hear.
Okay. So you don't feel like you can be a fair and impartial juror?
Not in this one.
Okay. Counsel? Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for filling out the questionnaire and being so honest here. So, you're excused from this jury? All right. Have a good evening. Okay, 1 second. Okay, the juror was excused for cause. There was no objection by the state or the defense. And I think the reason for her being struck for cause are obvious. She said that she couldn't be fair and impartial. Okay, Deputy, I think we're ready for the next. It's 52, I believe, right?
55.
Oh, 55. Oh, 52? It's not 52? That was 52. Okay, thanks, guys. I'm just getting kind of tired here. Hello, Mr. 55. How are you? Yes, please. And would you please remove your mask? Okay. I want to thank you twice. Thank you for filling out this lengthy questionnaire, and thank you for waiting. So, I know you've been sitting back there a long time, and it's always not being last is not the best thing. Okay. So it looks like you really, let me go back.
Sure.
Do you know anything about this case from what you've heard or seen in the media?
I remember when it happened, but I didn't do like a ton of research or anything on it. I was just busy. So.
Okay. So you don't have any opinions one way or the other, or general impressions of Defendant Potter or Daunte Wright. Am I right?
You're correct.
Okay. You related that your wife and daughter were victims of an attempted carjacking in South Minneapolis. When did that happen?
Right at the beginning of COVID, so March or April of 2020.
Okay. And were the police called?
Yes.
And were the culprits found?
No. Not that we know of.
Okay. And were you satisfied with how the police responded?
So I wasn't there for that response. I showed up after. I had COVID at the time, so
Okay.
I couldn't be part of that. I ended up showing up right afterwards. My wife and I don't live together. We're in different houses, so I showed up after they had dealt with the police. So I don't know how that process went.
Okay. Were either of them hurt?
Yes.
Okay. Physical injuries?
Yes.
And were they serious physical injuries?
My wife was pistol whipped, so I consider that serious.
Okay. How many people were involved?
4.
And can I ask, do
3
you
or
know
4,
what?
sorry.
Do you know how old they were or what their
Young
race
men.
was?
20s.
Do you know what their race was?
They were, I believe, either Hispanic or African American.
Okay.
They were lighter brown skinned, if I remember correctly.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
They're either African American or Hispanic.
Okay.
Not 100% sure. That I'd have to ask my wife.
Will that incident affect your ability to be fair and impartial in this case?
It won't affect it, no.
Okay. So you were in the Navy?
Yes.
Okay, and you've been shocked or stunned by a taser?
Yeah, it was super fun.
Just for fun?
No, it was super fun, I said.
Okay.
No, it was part of Gate Force training.
All right. There's going to be testimony about tasers in this case. Will you rely on what the evidence is in this case in forming any opinions on tasers
Yes.
rather than what you learned while being in the Navy?
Absolutely. The technology has changed so much. It's 20 years ago.
All right, great. You stated that you're a former wilderness first responder certified. Can you tell me what that is?
Boy Scouts.
Oh, you were a Boy Scout.
I was a scout leader.
Okay.
So that was a certification for backcountry backpacking.
All right. Are you still
No.
doing that?
No.
Okay.
That was done 7-8 years ago. So
That must have been an interesting experience with
It was
a
a good
bunch of kids out in the wilderness, huh?
Yep.
Now, you were accused of a very minor driving misdemeanor of driving after suspension. Do you have any complaints about how the justice system treated you on that?
No.
Okay. And do you have any complaints about how the police reacted to that?
No.
Okay. Okay, you were a volunteer of the year in 2007 for the Minneapolis Park System. What were your duties when you were?
My wife and I started the flag football program for Minneapolis Park System.
The what program?
The flag football program.
Oh, okay.
So instead of putting kids in tackle equipment when they're in 3rd grade, we felt it was smarter to have them learn the fundamentals. And
Right, it sounds
instead
like
of
you've
getting,
been
brain injuries.
Yeah, it sounds like you volunteered a lot to work with kids.
It was fun.
All right, I need to ask you about this. Minnesota Armored Combat Medieval Steel Fighting. Can you
Yes.
tell me about that?
I put on steel armor and pick up steel weapons and hit my friends with them.
Okay.
So it's a very fun time.
All right.
It's my Monday night football, so to speak. So.
Okay, when you responded 2 months ago, you were asked whether you wanted to serve as a juror in this case, and you said you were not sure. Has your answer changed?
If I'm needed, I'll absolutely serve.
Okay.
So that's the way I'm looking at it.
All right.
So I
if
have
you-
a little bit of anxiety about serving, because I've never done it before.
Okay.
But that's just me. So.
Well, you know, most of the people that we've had questions so far have never served on a jury. And I just want to tell you, and I'm telling you the truth honestly, I talk to jurors after they render a verdict, and every single one of them have told me they were glad they were able to serve as a juror, and that conferring with their fellow jurors in the deliberation room was really an enlightening experience, and that they all stepped away with a renewed respect for our justice system. So I just want you to know that it's something that you might want to look forward to. Okay. All right. So you are willing to serve if you're picked by the parties.
I am, yes.
Okay. Is there anything that hasn't been asked that you think we should know about your ability to be fair and impartial to both sides in this type of a case?
Not that I can think of, no.
All right. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon.
Hi there.
Again, my name is Paul Lang. I'm one of the lawyers for Officer Potter, Earl Gray, Amanda Montgomery, and I have a right to ask you certain questions, and then my colleagues for the state ask you some questions, and then the process will be completed.
Sure.
Okay. Where do you go for the steel weapons? This thing you described.
For practice or for fighting?
Why don't you tell me? You're the first person we've heard about this, so
Sure.
tell me about this.
Sure.
We'll get
So
to the nuts and grit.
we practice on Sundays for soft kit, every other Saturday in actual armor. Right now, a lot of our practices happen in my backyard because we don't have our own training facility, and we travel around the U.S. I have some guys that have fought internationally as well.
So you put on. Help me understand it, just for curiosity.
Sure.
I guess you put on the steel armor.
Yep.
And what do you fight with then?
I fight with an axe or a mace and a shield.
And what do you try to hit each other with the axe, or what?
Yes, as hard as we can.
And then the steel stops it, of course.
Correct. The weapons are not sharp; they're blunted. So there are rules around what we do, legal strike zones, things like that. Like you can't hit the back of the knee, shouldn't strike the neck, things like that, because safety third. Little joke, but yeah, it's in the weight of the weapons. There's limits on that as well. So.
Was it kind of like wrestling? You get in kind of a ring and do. I won't
Yeah,
ask you
so
too much
we
more
get in a
about
big
this.
square, what we call a list, which is many yards wide and long, and we have teams, so it usually be like 5 versus 5, and it's the last person standing on a team who wins. And you do that over and over again and accumulate points, and then you find out who wins the whole competition.
Now, how did you get into this?
I like the Renaissance Fair, and I've worked out there for quite a while, and one of my coworkers was the captain for the team, and he's still on the team now. I'm the captain for the team. So,
Were you one of the people that did the horses and
the what?
with the
No,
spears and the
I
horses?
don't. I do not joust. No.
Okay. All right.
I help sell medieval weapons out at Fest. So,
As a sidelight?
it's just fun. I do it for fun.
Well, tell us what you do. I saw that you were some kind of engineer, but I couldn't tell what that meant.
Yeah, I'm a field systems engineer for a cybersecurity company. So it means I'm on the technical side of the sales process for selling things like firewalls and secure mail gateways, things like that.
And make sure no one gets data that is jeopardized. Is that kind of what you're doing?
The idea is keep my customers from getting hacked.
And how long have you been doing that?
1998 is when I started.
Did you get in that? Your work, and then I think you were in the Navy. Am I right about that?
I was, yes.
Did that kind of get you started in the area?
No, not at all. Navy was a completely different set of skills.
What did you do in the Navy?
So I was machinist mate 3rd class.
Which means for us?
Glorified plumber.
Okay.
So high pressure steam systems, things like that, and then I did gate security and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Mastered arms work. So.
All right. Well, let me get to this case then.
Sure.
You indicated that you didn't have any impressions of Officer Potter. Excuse me. That your feelings were neutral.
Correct.
Are you still there at the neutrality zone?
Yeah, I have done no research on it at all. So.
And since you got this questionnaire, you didn't you didn't do any
nope.
searching intentionally. Nope. So I assume.
Potentially, yeah. I take the duty seriously. So.
And same thing for Mr. Wright, neutral.
Correct.
And you'll call it as you see it here.
Mm-hmm.
And be fair to both sides.
Correct.
You can presume her innocent.
Correct.
And make sure the state adheres to its burden.
Yep.
And if they don't, you'll call it as you see it.
Correct. Innocent until proven guilty, right?
Right. That's correct. Okay. But you do say in question 6 on page 4, the situation seemed complex and stressful, and you'll leave it to the courts.
Correct.
And how did you come to that conclusion that it seemed complex and stressful?
I saw a very short video clip when it first happened, and it looked like a lot of things were happening all at once.
Okay. How many times did you see that video?
Once.
Then the next page, I'm just going to ask you a couple questions here, just to amplify your answers. The question was, just for your memory, do you believe your community has been negatively or positively affected by any demonstrations that have taken place in the Twin Cities in the last 2 years? Please explain. You say overall positive, putting critical eye on policy and procedure isn't a bad thing.
Correct.
Tell me more about that.
I think you always need to examine what your leaders and the people that enforce what your leaders are doing on a regular basis to have a good society. So having that critical eye on enforcement or government, et cetera, is a positive thing.
But you understand here, you're not setting standards of conduct. You're just you're looking at the evidence and making a critical decision. Okay. Then on the next page, you say, I have supported common sense reforms that benefit the community and law enforcement. Tell me what common sense reforms you have supported, if I may ask.
I think that responding to some situations with people trained in social work rather than police might be a smart thing for us to do. I'm not saying we need to get rid of the police force. I'm saying we need to augment what we have so that we can respond better to mental health situations and things like that.
Okay. And you understand here your decision is not what you would have done, but what happened, to evaluate what happened, of course.
Say that again?
Your job here, if you're picked, is not to decide what you would have done.
Correct.
But to figure out what happened.
Exactly.
And put together all the moving parts of this.
Yep.
Okay. Officer Potter's going to testify.
Mm-hmm.
Are you willing to wait in your evaluation of the evidence to hear what she has to say?
Yes.
And the other evidence that we will be presenting. So the state goes first, of course, but we have something to say about this, and we want to make sure you listen to us.
Yep.
No worries about that.
No.
I'm sorry about this carjacking, but I couldn't tell how long ago that was. If you told the judge, I apologize. How long ago was it?
It was March or April of 2020. It was right at the tail end of when I had COVID, so I don't. It's a little blurry at the time.
It was in South Minneapolis?
Yes.
Whereabouts was it, if you can tell me?
Morris Park neighborhood. So over by the VA hospital.
And your motorcycle was stolen too?
Yeah.
Are you a Harley guy?
Yep.
And then you filled out this one form on number 7. I have to ask you a couple of questions about this strongly agree, strongly disagree part. Do you remember this?
Vaguely. It was 2 months ago.
One of the questions was the criminal justice system is biased against black people, and you strongly agree.
I do. I think there's a systemic racism problem in the system. I don't think that necessarily affects this case, but
well, that's
I think
my
overall
question.
The system is the issue.
You got ahead of me. That's my question. I mean,
Sure.
we have Officer Potter is white.
Mm-hmm.
Daunte Wright is black. Is that going to? I mean, the fact that you think that there's some systemic racism problems, can you set that aside and listen to the evidence here?
Yep, that's what I'm here for. Or if I'm selected, would be here for.
Okay. Then another question, because law enforcement officers have such dangerous jobs, it's not right to second guess decisions they make while on duty, and you said that you strongly disagreed with that.
You should always question every decision people make.
Okay. Whether in law enforcement or anywhere.
Correct.
And that's,
Just look at everything with a critical eye is kind of what that means.
and that's consistent with your background too, as
Yep.
an engineer, right?
Yep.
So on the gun question, you got 2 shotguns, 2 rifles, 2 handguns for starters.
It's 2 shotguns, 1 rifle, 2 handguns.
You're fully permitted, I assume, for all of these?
Permit's not required unless I'm carrying.
I'm sorry, the last?
I don't need a permit to own them, just to carry them.
Okay, got it. And you go target shooting, do you?
I haven't gone shooting in probably 2 years.
And this, a couple more questions for you. This taser training that you took, were you actually shot?
Yeah, they tased us in the back.
And how long ago was that?
1989, 1990. It was a while. It was a long time ago.
And you indicated on the question about Blue Lives Matter that you're somewhat unfavorable. And you say, quotes, you can choose your vocation, you can't choose your skin color.
Correct.
And is that pretty self-explanatory?
I feel it is, yes.
And I'm curious about this wilderness responder certified. Was that in the Boundary Waters, or is that when you were in a different area of the country?
So that was for backcountry stuff for the Boy Scouts, right? It didn't matter where we were going. We had to have people that were certified. And I was one of the adults that got certified through American Red Cross. So that was primarily for a trip we did to Isle Royale. And so I don't know if you're familiar with Lake Superior and Isle Royale, but
right.
It's a very fun place to go.
So you backpacked one end and came back on the other one?
Yeah, we hiked the whole spine. It was fantastic. So.
And were you a scoutmaster in town here, I assume?
Yes.
Okay. And you're no longer doing it?
Correct.
Kids grew out of it?
Yep.
Okay. Well, the bottom line here is we're just trying to find out a little bit about you and talk to you a little bit about your life. At the bottom line is whether you can be fair to Officer Potter, given your life experience and all that you know. And that's the penultimate question for us. Whether at the end of the day you can be fair to her. And only you know, and is it going to be yes or no for you?
Yes, I can be fair.
And you don't have any hesitation about that?
I do not.
You have just a moment?
Sure.
Well, thank you very much for talking to me. We passed this juror, Your Honor.
Mr. Frank?
Thank you, Your Honor. And Juror 55, I apologize for calling you by number, but that's just
fine.
The way the system's working. And you're a very conversational person. I've enjoyed this, the interactions with you. But the court reporter's fingers are probably on fire right now because you have this very natural way of talking before one person finishes the answer. So I don't want to come off as rude, but I know we have to be a little careful not to do that as much.
I apologize.
No, it's very natural. Part of being a lawyer is sometimes having to remind people that, the aha versus yes and that. So no problem at all. Just thought I might as well explain it up front so that if it comes up, you'll know why I raise it again. Okay. All of that business out of the way. Coming third also means that Mr. Ng got to ask some of the questions that I wanted to ask. You said that you get put this armor on and you hit your friends with weapons, and just the way you said it made me, of course, want to say with their consent.
Yes.
But obviously, the way you've explained it, that does include their consent. And I assume you have warned your neighbors about what's going on in your backyard before practice.
My neighbors love it.
Yeah, do they? Yeah. Pull up a chair and a beer. And
they do.
No admission being charged.
No.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you for. Maybe it's something you really enjoy talking about. It's kind of nice to learn things like this. It's some of the best part of jury selection like this is to learn about people and their interests and how they live their lives. In the Navy, some time ago, 89, 90, apparently, you obviously carried a duty weapon, I assume.
Yes.
And is that where you learned really the first time about guns and handling guns?
No.
Okay. Where had you learned about that before?
My grandfather.
Okay. So hunting, I assume?
Gophers, I think it was.
Yeah.
So in the horse field.
Yeah. So it's really kind of been a lifelong thing for you to have guns around and be familiar with guns.
Yeah, I didn't own them growing up. It was all my grandpa's stuff, but I didn't actually own my first firearm until I moved to Minnesota.
Okay. That was post-Navy then?
That was post-Navy, yeah.
Okay. It's terrible to start a question with, but you, in the Navy, you did some gate duty, I think you called it?
Gate force. So gate security.
And
so you're familiar with the term trail patrol or mastered arms?
Nope.
That was okay. So just security force. I don't know how else to explain it.
Yeah. So kind of like standing guard at the gate.
Yeah, letting people on and off base, patrolling base.
Yeah. So not really an MP.
No, they don't. There's no MPs in the Navy. It's trail patrol, mastered arms.
Yeah. So not trained as an investigating officer.
No investigations at all.
Okay. No. It sounded like, your wife and your daughter went through a very traumatic event.
Correct.
And it would be very difficult for, a husband and father. And if you've been asked this already, I'm sorry, but it sounds like you wouldn't have any difficulty separating that incident from what you would hear as the evidence about this incident in the courtroom.
Correct. They're totally not related. So,
and obviously, maybe it's not obvious. That there's a young male black victim in this case.
Mm-hmm.
And is that yes?
Yes.
And the suspects might have been similar demographic for your wife and your daughter's incident. Any difficulty, just separating those two things out, deciding this case based on the evidence here?
No difficulty.
The taser incident, did you volunteer for that once?
Yes.
And that question assumed something I don't know. Did you volunteer for that?
Yes, I volunteered for that. Never again.
Yeah. You learned from that one?
Yes.
And so was it the kind of taser that you would think it was a stun gun, or did it actually shoot barbs out?
It was more of a stun gun, so they had to put the contact to the back. It did not shoot the barbs.
And obviously this case, to some extent, involves a taser. Any difficulty for you setting aside your personal experience, and just deciding the case on what you hear here in the courtroom?
Yeah, I can set that aside, yes.
Okay. Obviously, things are much different 30 years later or whatever.
Yes.
Okay. You only watched the video one time?
Yep.
And that was on the news?
I think it was WCCO, but I don't remember exactly what was on.
And you said there's a lot happening there. And,
yep.
Obviously, this trial is about what is happening there. And,
correct.
It's going to be presented to you in a much different format. And so you have to answer.
Yes.
And yeah, see what I mean?
I understand.
And so you had that initial impression based on that brief look at the video. Now if you're selected as a juror, you got to simply completely put that out of your mind.
Yes, I
You
understand.
can do that.
I can do that.
If you could just give me a moment, please. Excuse me. Judge, may I have a moment?
Yes.
I have no further questions. Thank you. And Your Honor, we would pass the jury for cause.
All right. You will be on this jury.
I will be.
You will be on this jury. And we're expecting to start December 8th, but we may start earlier.
Okay.
You will receive a call from the jury office telling you when we're going to start, where to report, and what time.
All right.
Okay. Okay, thank you for waiting all day, and have a wonderful evening.
All right, thank you.
Okay, let's all group together and what?
We have one more jury, Judge.
We have one more juror. Yeah. How many more? How many do we have right now, Zach?
Seated?
Yes.
12.
12. So we need 2 more. Okay. So we'll start with 57 tomorrow, unless you guys want to keep on going. I mean, Mr. Ng is going like this. Okay, who votes to stop for the day? Oh, okay. You only get 1 vote, Mr. Gray. Okay. I think we should stop for the day and bring in the next juror tomorrow morning. We should finish up. We've got plenty of time. Okay, could I briefly see the lawyers in chambers?
right, you all. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. That is the third day has now finished in the Kim Potter trial. Jury selection. 12 jurors are now selected. You heard that last one with a sort of surprise ending to it all, and he was selected. So again, 2 jurors to be sat. What you're looking at on the right side is just the color bars from the court. We're going to play one video and then bring you up for the afternoon. Thank you all so much. I think we are starting at 9 a.m. tomorrow. That is not written on the screen. Let me get up there. It's 9 a.m. tomorrow, I believe, is what the normal time should be. She did not specify. That was interesting how we could see the judge Terrell in the chat is saying 8:30ish. I did not hear that, but that is definitely a possibility. So we'll be back in the morning. We will be up and ready to bring you the coverage at 8:30 if it starts. If it doesn't, we will be back live about 8:50, 8:45. So expect us in the morning. Again, you all take care. If you want to know more information about the Kim Potter trial, head to our website, unicornriot.ninja. You can see the front page right there. On the website, you will also see the Kim Potter trial landing page, which you see at the top with the graphic. That landing page will bring you in with some information about the trial, and you can catch up with some of the streams. We'll be updating this a little bit later in the day. So again, if you want that information, check that out. What they've been talking about is a jury questionnaire, which is retrievable from our website at that last page I was just showing you, Kim Potter trial. And this is the jury questionnaire. This is what they've been talking to everybody about. The people have already filled out this questionnaire, and from filling it out, they send it in, and then from them sending it in, the defense and the prosecution has abilities to actually strike potential jurors before they come to the courthouse. So you see, this is the first question, and then it goes into all of the questions. It is a 17-page PDF, and it has a lot of questions. A lot of the questions are revolving around Daunte Wright, revolving around protests that happened, revolving around police, revolving around tasers, and even the Black Lives Matter and Blue Lives Matter questions. Now, we heard quite a few of those questions a little bit earlier today as well. And we'll continue to see how it transpires. Again, they only need 2 more jurors to be in panel to sit on this jury. Once that is done, the case will be starting after a day of break, from my understanding. Then the opening statements will happen. So again, the Daunte Wright's family has 3 seats in the courtroom. I believe the same is for Kim Potter. So actually, this questionnaire, you see the last 2 pages are blank. So it's really about 15-page questionnaire. So yeah, check out our website for that. We'll have some more updates on this trial on our website ongoing in these next couple days. We are a small 501c3 media organization. Continue to support us if you have the abilities. I'll get you this. Bang. There we go. And so continue to follow our work. As I said, unicornriot.ninja is the website. Our Twitter feed, Unicorn Riot Live, has been tweeting this afternoon. Thank you, Alex, for doing that. I see a question in the chat. Does UR have merch? We do not at the moment, but that will be something that will be possibly transpiring by early next year, where we'll have some merchandise for sale. We are a 501c3 as nonprofit. As you can see, we always need support, and we are created by you guys, by you all, excuse me. Go to unicornriot.ninja/donate to check out more on that. We were also streaming on YouTube and Twitter. Again, the Twitter feed that we have for this extra coverage is Unicorn Riot Live. So we're going to bring you out with a quick protest that happened outside the governor's residence on November 10th. November 9th was when the judge ruled that cameras would be allowed in the courtroom, and this was 3 days after there was a protest at her house, outside her house. After the ruling, there was another protest that happened. It was already scheduled to take place outside the governor's residence on the next day, November 10th. That was a very small protest. It was raining and not much happened. But we will show you that, and then we will bring it up. So thank you all for tuning in again, and continue to follow us. Thank you all for watching on Facebook. If I did not mention that, thank you all for being nice in the chat with each other and creating a safe environment for us all. We're going to play this clip in a moment, and we will be back to say goodbye and good night.
Sorry, that's my own little child. Take your bitch ass home! Take your bitch ass home! Take your bitch ass home! Say that, girl. No peace! Fuck well! No peace! Prosecute the police! Fuck well! No peace! Prosecute the police! Prosecute the police! Yeah. St. Paul police. Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter! Fuck 12! No KKK, no racist USA! No cop! No KKK, no racist USA! Fuck Kim Potter! Daunte Wright! Daunte Wright! Daunte Wright!
You just saw a little tiny clip from a protest that happened 3 weeks ago outside the governor's residence. People marched around the block. So thank you all for tuning in. This is Nico from Unicorn Riot. Thank you, Alex, for running the live tweets on Unicorn Riot Live. And we will be back in the morning. Check us out around 8:30 if they get started by then. Otherwise, 8:45, 8:50. There's been 12 jurors impaneled. They need 2 more to start the Kim Potter trial. You all take it easy and have a good night. Oops.